Hey guys, so welcome to the masterclass on lean thinking and the bottleneck system. So every business has hidden inefficiencies that quietly drain time, money and energy. The challenge is that most of these problems have become normal and we stop seeing them altogether. So in this session, I'm going to take you through some simple ways to identify those operational inefficiencies, uncover bottlenecks, and focus your improvement efforts where they have the biggest impact. By the end, you'll have a practical framework you can use immediately to improve performance and free up capacity in your business. So the way we think about this, if we think about how we start diagnosing these various types of inefficiencies, is we have an acronym called DOWNTIME. Now this is split into different types of waste. Now this has come from many lean concepts where we have these 8 wastes identified. And a good thing to do is think about your process in this way. So the first one is defects. The second one is overproduction, producing too much of something. The third one is waiting. The fourth one is non-utilized talent. The fifth one is transportation. The sixth one is inventory. Then we have motion. Then we have excess processing. Now I'll go through each one of these with a bit of an example of each one. But this is a very easy way to understand and measure your existing processes just by using this acronym. And some of you may have spotted on there, on defects, there may be a slight issue on this slide. Let me know in the comments if you do manage to see it. So the first one is defects, work that must be redone. So this is something that many businesses suffer from. This particular example is an online shop. So they've paid the return postage, they've remade the order, and obviously they've got all of that compound cost in time and money that have had to incur due to this particular defect. The second thing is overproduction. So you make too much. So you're producing items or completing work before it's actually required by the next step or the customer. So this example is a very simple one. A bakery bakes extra pastries just in case. At the end of the day with unsellable stock, tying up critical cash flow and hiding true demand signals. And this is a very typical scenario where businesses at the end of the day will try and sell all of the leftover stock. But at the end of the day, it does tie in a lot of cash if you can't sell that stock. Next we have waiting, the silent margin killer. So this is something that is, again, very typical. You'll see that there'll be machines maybe on stop or waiting for some kind of products to arrive. There could be approvals within a process, which is very common these days when you're having workflows that are created that require different people's approval. So in this particular example, it's a designer that waits for client approval before they can continue. The project stretches out. Timelines break, clients get upset, all because we don't have a robust process at the beginning of the process to actually get that approval. Now next up is non-utilized talent. Now this is something that a lot of people overlook. This can be having people in the wrong positions within the company, but it could also be having people having to do rework or meaningless quality checks because something's not right upstream within a particular process. And you see this a lot. So again, this particular example, frontline staff know exactly how to speed up the checkout process, but they're never asked. Process improvements die and the team morale drops. So when we're thinking about how to improve our processes, the people who are actually doing the task every single day are the ones that we need to be consulting to see what they think is going wrong. And when we're building out things like process maps to actually diagnose some of these bottlenecks and some of these waste in a process, they're the ones that you need to have in the room to do those process maps. Next up, we have transportation. This is one thing I see quite a lot, especially when I'm doing work within a factory type environment. Parts being moved about between workshops, which is why a lot of times you put cells in place to make things as streamlined as possible as far as transportation goes. But this could also be electronic transportation where you're having emails or workflows go to various locations just waiting, or files being transferred from one server to another. It can be an electronic thing, but generally it's nice and visual when you show it as a physical workshop environment. And in this case, again, parts are constantly moved between 2 different workshops simply because tools are stored in the wrong place. Extra handling adds time and risks damage. And I've done this myself. I've had projects where you've reduced overall time in a factory as far as distance is concerned by several hundred meters just by moving one oven. And once you start mapping out the transportation of something within a particular factory, you will get some great insights and be able to make some great improvements. So next up is inventory. Now this is usually kind of thought as cash inside a box, where you have things that are in WIP, in work in progress, that aren't moving as quick as you would like or as quick as you had planned to do. You have things in the stock rooms that are not being utilized quick enough. All of that is cash on the shelf or on the shop floor that's not being utilized. So in this one, a retailer overorders seasonal items to secure a bulk discount, only to pay for storing unsold boxes that tie up vital operational cash. So whenever you're looking at your processes, think about, where am I seeing excess inventory? And I would also have that as a KPI within your business, how much inventory you're currently holding, so that we can monitor this properly. Next is motion. Similar to transportation. Transportation you tend to think about as moving parts around physically. Motion tends to be the human. So the human within a particular area, how do they move about? How do they bend around? How do they have to carry out their jobs? Where's the tools that they use located? All of that can be motion waste. And in this one, a mechanical waste hours over a week, simply walking to fetch tools because the workbench isn't locally organized. Every single repair takes longer. So this is, again, a physical example. But if you think about on your desktop, and you'll have files and different locations for your various documents, if you have too many files open or too many documents on your screen, then you'll be spending a lot of time going from one thing to another, and that can be seen as a motion waste. So when you're thinking about this, if it's an electronic environment or a digital environment, think about your desktop as one example of what this could look like. Next up is extra processing. Now, many people don't really think about this, but if you have a client order, and let's say they want a PowerPoint of a certain type, if you start spending hours doing various things to that PowerPoint, changing colors, customizing, whatever it may be, each one of them is a potential over processing of that particular deliverable. And it happens quite a lot when you're trying to impress the client. So you've got to have a happy balance between standardizing the output of your particular process, and then on the flip side, not spending hours changing every single thing for every single client. So in this one, an accountant spends hours formatting long 20-page reports that nobody reads. Instead of delivering a simple one-page dashboard, time is wasted on low-value details. So think about all of the information that you're creating. Is that actually being used by anybody? And it's very, very common to see that people have long reports or dashboards that are highly detailed that nobody actually views. So that's downtime there, the 8 ways. So that's what you're trying to find when you start looking at your processes. But the first step in the bottleneck system is to look at your actual flow itself and to map the flow. Once you have that flow, you can use your 8 ways to look at each of those steps and think about, is my particular step creating any of those 8 ways? If it is, you can identify that on the map, and then you go ahead and start measuring the impact of that particular waste. Now, for defect, it could be percentage of things that actually have defects in them. For waiting time, it could be a time value. For transportation, it could be distance, again, or a time value. There is ways that you can measure each one of these, and I'll go into these in subsequent videos in a little bit more detail, but you have to put some kind of measure against each one. Next, we're going to fix that bottleneck. So there's lots of different ways that you can fix bottlenecks, defects, for instance, understanding what's happening with that particular part or document, and then putting things in place upstream to actually go ahead and fix them. There are many different methods that you can use to fix them. And again, in future videos, I can go through some of their methods, and then you repeat. So you're looking for, on your process map, when we go through this process, which are the things that you can go ahead and fix straight away, and then putting plans in place for things that may take a little bit longer or a little bit more effort. So there is an approach to this. What you need to do is you need to pick one process to start with. You need to identify the biggest bottleneck using the downtime process, and then put actions in place to fix that, and then move on to the next one. Don't try to fix everything at once, because what you'll do is you'll end up trying to boil the ocean, which means there'll be too many things to try and fix, and then nothing will get fixed. Basically, try and be very focused on what you're trying to fix next. And typically what you'll find if you're looking at a small business is the quickest wins will come from things like waiting, overproduction, or non-utilized talent, because they'll be easily identified when you start process mapping. So once you've done the first bottleneck, go measure that gain, and then repeat the process. So to make this efficient, you have to have a very specific approach to doing this type of work. So the old way used to be try and chase everything around at once and fix it all at once. Only managers would get involved in the particular process, and then you'd be over inspecting the outcomes and trying to put in additional quality checks. What we're trying to do is get to the biggest issues first. We're trying to find the root causes of those issues so that we can get rid of those defects altogether. And then we're involving the right people, frontline staff, etc., in that particular process to make sure we have the right level of knowledge to make those fixes. So I have a little bit of a challenge. When you go into your particular environment tomorrow, whatever it may be, think about your own processes, think about the downtime acronym and those wastes, and start looking at, is there things within this particular process we could start making improvements on? And it could be very, very small things that can save you an hour over the day. It doesn't have to be huge things. If you start accumulating those problems and start getting those hours accumulated, before you know it, you'll have a significant amount of time saved within your particular operation. Now on my website, I will put a link in the description below. There is a calculator on that website that allows you to see how much time you're wasting when you're looking at certain defects or certain waste within your process. And it's a really useful thing to focus the mind on where we think we could get the biggest impact if we start doing these types of measures. So take a look at that, go over to the website, have a look at that calculator. But at the end of the day, this is really, really powerful if you don't try and boil that ocean. You just go into work tomorrow and think about what you do every day and think about downtime, defects, overproduction, waiting, non-use of talent, transport, inventory, motion, and excess processing. Are any of those things happening within your particular work environment? If they are, you've got a great start to be able to make some really good, tangible improvements. Thanks for taking the time to watch the video. Don't forget to check out the website below. There is some great information on there that will get you started. Until next time, take care.